And so these are the just certain people, like a coach I had in my corner. But I also thought of your circle as your board of directors. We all know, and maybe all of us don't, but corporations, even nonprofit organizations, have a board, and they hire and have people on their board who has the best interest of the company. So there are people on my personal board of directors who have my best interest at heart. They're not yes men. I don't want yes men. If I'm in a circle, well, I know more than them. I need to find somebody else. I need to, because I like to learn, grow, and serve. And if I can't learn, grow, or serve from the people that are in my circle, then I need to move on.
What's going on, guys? It's your Javi David St. Clair Speaks, and you are now tuned in to the St. Clair Speaks Show.
You are now tuned in to the St. Clair Speaks Show.
Welcome back to the St. Clair Speaks Show podcast. I'm your host, Javi St. Clair, sitting down with another incredible guest. Super excited because we are sitting with another author. I am sitting down with Cassandra Crawley Mayo. She is an author of Is Your Way in Your Way? Now, I usually do these long introductions and all of this good stuff, but the title of her book, right, Is Your Way in Your Way? We're going to talk about a lot, right? We're going to talk about, Cassandra's background, her profession, all that she's done in corporate. She's worked with many different, clients and companies, but before retirement, Cassandra was vice president of client relations in a Fortune Global 500 company. She is established in her brand and business. And more importantly, above all, Cassandra is a vision, and her message of inspiration is to empower women to be the best that they can be. Now, if you know me, I'm a girl dad, so I support the message. Cassandra, I want to welcome you on to the St. Clair Speaks Show podcast. And what brings you onto the show?
Okay, thank you. I am super excited to be here. Thanks so much for the invitation. My brand is Cassandra Crawley Mayo. And the reason I selected that brand, because that's me. That's who I am. That's my name. I'm not perpetrating. I'm very transparent. And I am on a mission, and I am, as Yahavi stated, I am on a mission. My vision is to empower women to be the best that they can be. And I say that because I was not the best that I could be later on in my career. And I refuse not to give what I believe my gifts and talents are to our nation, to our community, or to our world, whatever one you want to select.
I want to dive right into it. The title of your book. What inspired you to write the book, right? And what is the message you want readers to take away from it?
What inspired me to write the book is I was stuck. I had a successful career. I was blessed. And I say that because in every space that I was in, I was the first African American female. And with that type of position, I was thriving. I was thriving because I didn't know any better. And what I mean by that is, hey, I got this, I got the roles, I did the best that I could, and I was very successful in what I did. So that enabled me to be a trailblazer for other women, and it also enabled me to be a trailblazer for other people. And I was able to support corporate American executives to see the lens differently than like, oh, she's Black. We hired her because we had to meet our quota. And I just wanted to not necessarily prove in the beginning, but to demonstrate it wasn't a quota. I was qualified to do the job, and I was grateful to do a great job. So the title came from later on in my career, I was in my way. I don't know, my belief system started changing because of the challenges I went through for being the first African American female. I always felt I had to prove myself. I had to show that I could do the job. I worked harder, I worked longer, and I got burned out. And what was in my way was me. And what I mean by that, I wore a figurative mask. I was no longer transparent. I also compared myself to others I was being in my way. I also got to a point where, because of the challenges that I had, not only with corporate, but with life, I was like, is there really a God? I even got to that point because it was so tough. You join the church, you give your life over to the Lord, and then things just went crazy. And I realized that I was just in my way. If I could just get those limiting beliefs away from me, then I could, like what I say, thrive more, not just strive. And that's why I said that, that's why I titled that, because I realized I was in my way of doing what I felt that I should be doing.
Being, in my opinion, I think one of the first ways of getting out of your way is acknowledging it, right? But we're at what point, because you mentioned, it seems like the more successful you got,
Mhm.
the doubt got louder.
Mhm.
Why is that?
Great question. It got louder because I realized that I was tired. I was burnt out, and I'm like, why? Why? I was like a hamster that just couldn't stop. And I think because of that, I was just conditioned. And the pivotal moment for me, and I talked about this in my preface of the book that I wrote, that I had an out of body experience at an airport. And I will save the long story and just make it short. But something pivotal happened in that airport where I actually got out of myself, got out of my way, and stepped in a position with airline agents, because the flight was canceled. Everything went chaotic. It was a full flight. They made excuses throughout the night from 4 o'clock to 10 at night, and all of a sudden the flight was canceled. People were chaotic. They were out of control. And I got up, got information from the flight attendants to get an understanding of what was necessary. Where were the hotels? Could the people eat? Is there recovery mode? There were just certain things that I asked the agents. Once I understood and got that information, I took their mic and I made an announcement for a war zone, and share with the individuals. If you wanted a hotel room, you stand in this line. If you want to fly out the next day, you stand in this line. So in other words, I put chaos into order. And when I did that, I realized that, number one, that wasn't my business. And number two, I didn't even realize I did it until it was over. And then number three, when I sat down, this guy came over to me and said, what you did was incredible. And number four, when I got to the airport the next morning, I was applauded for what I had done. And there was a little voice inside of me that said, if you would just get out of your way, there will be some great things that I can do through you. And that's what really started, and that's where the title came from.
Man, it's so touchy because sometimes we could be our own blessing and we could be our own burden, right? We have to get out of our own way. I want to talk to you about, I think I said this the other day, but I guess I tweeted this or shared this on LinkedIn, that consistency beats motivation 10 times out of 10. When you're looking for inspiration, right? You're at this point of success. What has kept you so aligned, right? Like staying in alignment with your assignment. What has keeping you so driven on your goals?
Well, what has kept me is God. um, if it were not for Him, and a lot of people may have heard this and think it's a cliche, but this is my story. If it were not for Him, I would not be here. And that is the truth, and nothing but the truth. And I had mentioned earlier when I said I questioned whether there was a God, because God is loving and He's good. And, He said that I died so that you could live life more abundantly. And I wasn't living it. And I was like, what is the deal? You know, um, I'm successful. How people think I'm so blessed. Why do I feel this way? And I just did. That was the human part that came out of me. And I just questioned whether He was real, and He revealed Himself. And I will never again ask that question because it depends on where you are, is where he will. It's kind of like he has to, everything is about you individually. So he got me where I was, where I could receive what he did. And so what I mean by that is not only the out of body experience, but a revelation I had when I questioned him whether he was real or not. So that has helped me stay focused. Sometimes I fall. I'm not going. Sometimes it's really rough. And another thing is the friends, the circle that I have around me, the circle of influence, who's important. Because I always say, if you can tell me who your friends are, I can tell you what your future's going to look like, and that's a fact.
That is so. My mom says that all the time. Show me who your friends are, and I'll show you who you are. So
Mhm.
since we're on that topic, just support system, the people that you have around you, your influence, your environment. Can you
Mhm.
talk to us about the importance of that? You're a mentor as well. Can you talk to why it's important to have, people that have the right mindset around you?
Mhm. Because association brings about assimilation. And what I mean by that is who you associate with will either take you to a higher level, or you may get to a point where you are intimidated by that and you will move away from that. So it's kind of like, my mantra is living your best life. And that's what my business is about, is I help and empower women to live their best life. So in order to live your best life, you need to define what that is. In other words, if you had a magic wand and you wanted to live a different sort of life, what would that look like? So for that, I realized that I have individuals in my circle, and it just so worked out like this only because of what my goals are in life. I have a financial advisor in my circle. I've had him for a long time. I have a keeping it real buddy, somebody who we went to college with that can tell me like it is and have a lot of fun. I have a spiritual journey partner that I could call if I want the truth. I'll call them. I have a partner or friend that is a CEO in a huge corporation. I have, of course, I had my parents. I made sure, because they were wise and they loved me to the core. So I knew that they would make sure that I am doing what I'm supposed to do. And so these are the just certain people, like a coach I had in my corner. But I also thought of your circle as your board of directors. We all know, and maybe all of us don't, but corporations, even nonprofit organizations, have a board. And they hire and have people on their board who has the best interest of the company. So there are people on my personal board of directors who have my best interest at heart. They're not yes men. I don't want yes men. If I'm in a circle, well, I know more than them, I need to find somebody else. I need to, because I like to learn, grow, and serve. And if I can't learn, grow, or serve from the people that are in my circle, then I need to move on.
Hey, I didn't know you were gonna be preaching like that. I didn't know you were gonna be preaching like that. That's the word. But it's so true because I've seen this quote. If you look around your circle and you don't feel inspired, you know, you're not in a circle. You're in a cage, right? So you kind of have that cage mentality. I wanted to ask you, and I should have asked you this first, right after the book. But why, why is helping women so important to you?
Because women are so powerful. I think about a chess game, and on the chessboard, there's a queen, and it's the only woman on the board. And they have on that board, they can move anywhere they want. They just have to be strategic in doing it. And also, if people realize the other folks on that board have to be in it to win it, they also want to win the game as well. And it's the only female on the board on both sides, right? So, and because I've been stuck in my life, because I've mentored women, I know that they have so much more to give, but they get stuck. And I like to be the one to support and help them determine what their best life looks like. And when I do that, I would like to talk about their childhood because the childhood plays a significant role in your adulthood. So there's exercise. So we kind of go through the childhood, then we kind of talk about what is your best life? What is preventing you from living your best life? What are some of the barriers that's preventing you from living your best life? Is it mental illness? Is it, like I said, comparing yourself? Is it wearing a mask because you can't be your authentic self? So we determine that, and also your hobby. What we don't do is we don't celebrate. We don't acknowledge when we do well. We don't acknowledge the accomplishments we've made. We are our worst critics. And if we acknowledge those accomplishments, and I always say those accomplishments and what we do must be aligned with the word of God. Because I've dealt with people that says, I want to get a certain income. Like for me, I retired at the age of 55 because I set a goal. And that's something that I wanted to do. So I've had people to say, well, I want to do the same thing, but then they go to the casino. Hey, I'm not saying you don't go to the casino, but they got addicted. They got addicted to gambling because they wanted money. They want it. So in other words, they saw the bait, but they didn't see the trap. They went to the bait, but they didn't even recognize the trap, and they got trapped.
Man, you preaching. You know what? What's so interesting is a lot of people see the bait, but they fall for the trap, and just in life as a whole. I like to ask this question because this has been recent in the last few years. But how were you able to, when the entire world shut down, right? 2 years ago, COVID, lockdown, this and that, and everyone losing work. How were you able to stay, just not above float is not the word I'm looking for, but level-headed and focused, and knowing that this too shall pass?
That's when I wrote my book. I've been wanting to write a book, I know 12 to 15 years ago, and I was stuck. And I always said, okay, I'm going to write this book. I'd sit down and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to write this book. But, it's interesting when you are called to do something and you don't, it's like something is called, you just don't have a peace. It's like something is gravitating to you. It's like, I was like, oh, I had this anxiety, like I just couldn't let it go. And that was an opportune time. I can't tell you what happened, but what I do know, I sat down and I went to work. And they always say when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. I was ready. And someone shared with me that they knew a ghostwriter that was also an editor. I'm like, okay, all right. So it was just certain things that were coming to me. And we talked to her, and I'm like, well, you can't ghostwrite it because this is my story. And that's basically how it started. We outlined it, and I was so focused on that. And I just knew that somebody out there was waiting for my book, or waiting for me to mentor them, or waiting for me to speak at an event. I just knew it. And I just didn't want to be trapped in my stuckness, because I knew it's somebody, it was like, people pulling you, and you don't know what it is, but something is pulling you. And so I just went in. I'm like, okay, I'm coming in and let's see what happens. So that's what I did with my time.
On the book, what has been some teachable moments for you as an author?
Teachable, number one, is I've never written a book before. It wasn't easy. There were times I wanted to give up, but I didn't. There were times when, as I was writing, there were people coming to me that I knew weren't the right people, particularly when I started the process and I wanted to self-publish. And I went searching, trying to figure out who could help and support me with this. And I also realized that nobody's an island. You cannot do anything by yourself. And you'll never know unless you try it. And I just say, you know, what confirmed what I was doing is I heard a message one day from a minister by the name of Dr. Miles Monroe from the Bahamas. And that man inspired me. He was an inspirational speaker, and he passed away. Him and his wife died in a airplane crash. But one of the things he said, the richest place in the world was the graveyard. And I was like, what are you talking about? The richest place? He said, yeah, because there's so many unmet dreams there. And that day I determined and I made a decision that I am not going to die with my glass half empty or half full. I want to give it all I got. And I just had to do what I feel led to do. So when I go, I want to say I've lived my best life.
Gem right there. Was Dr. Miles Monroe?
Yes.
Man, what? I heard that. Man. Oh my God, love his work. Absolutely love his work. He says the way you manage your time. What? Yeah, the way you manage your time is a reflection of your life. I'll never
Mhm.
forget
That's
that.
powerful.
What would you say are some what are three tips? What are three tips to getting unstuck? Like breaking out of that imposter syndrome, that stinking thinking. They would say.
Mhm. Number one is acknowledge it. You have to acknowledge you have issues. It's kind of like an alcoholic, a drug addict, anybody that's addicted to anything. You have to want to get you have to want the help. If you don't want it, then it's kind of like I can take you to the water, but I can't make you drink it. So first of all, you just have to acknowledge it. And once you acknowledge it, then my other tip is I pray. I just, I can remember crying out to God and said, I need your help. I cannot do this. So please guide me to the right people. And if you realize that you need help and can't do it, then seek counsel. Um, you know, uh, like I always say, my third tip, you always want to learn, grow, and serve. You know, a lot of people, winning is good, but if it's a sport or something competitive, okay, I'm okay with that. But if you focus on serving others, it's significant and you will even feel better about it. So, to reiterate, we want to acknowledge it, we want to pray and seek counsel, and we want to learn, grow, and serve. We want to serve others. It's not always about us.
Right. What would you It's a good point. I want to ask I want to kind of like swing back to, since we're on that topic, I want to swing to mentorship.
Mhm.
When did you know it, like did you get a mentor before you became one? When did you know, hey, maybe I need additional coaching or someone I could turn to for that advice?
Um, when I started in my career, one of the things I noticed, and I think only because I was female, first African American, people would come to me and ask advice. And I would give it to them. I had no name to it. I didn't know whether I was a mentor or a coach. And I also traveled probably 85 to 90% of the time on an airplane. I was always traveling. And one of the things what fascinated me on my travels were the people. And I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was my demeanor, but people used to tell me all of their business. And I would sit and I was like, now, maybe they're doing that because they don't know me. But yet, as I impart wisdom and life experiences, they were like, wow, I've even had people say, I'd rather pay you than my therapist. And I'm like, really? Not knowing, what I was doing. I was just, I don't know, I was just a transparent person. So by doing that, I realized too, I needed help. I needed somebody to coach me and things that I was stuck on or things that I needed help with. If I was having um, career challenges with colleagues. You want to know who you can talk to in that circle, or you may can't talk to anyone. And I always say, don't burn your bridges because you may need to cross them again. So I would just kind of assess the lay of the land, to determine who I can talk to. Another important thing is understand the politics, because everything is political. And once you understand the politics in an organization, then that gives you the ammunition to maneuver around. And if you don't understand it, that's when you reach out to somebody that you have a discernment that they're the right people to talk to about this situation. And also ask someone, would you mind mentoring me? Could you be my coach? And a lot of people don't ask, somebody that you feel okay with. So I think, of course, later on in my career, people were mentoring me and I didn't know it. And then eventually there was a name. I'm like, voila. Okay. So there it is. And, some mentorships are paid mentors, some are not. Some coaches are definitely paid coaches, some are not. It's just, it's about those relationships that you conjure up. Relationships are critical. Never underestimate the power of a relationship that you have.
That's a gem right there. If the 15-year-old Cassandra could see you now, you have 2 minutes to, maybe you go in a time machine, you're talking to the younger you. What is that conversation like? What advice would you give the younger you?
You are powerful. You are here for a reason. You're not just here just happenstance. There is something that you have in you that you're to give out. And I would say your gifts will make room for themselves. So just look out, do unto others like you'd have someone to do unto you, and trust God, and connect with the right people and ask for guidance to do that. And that little girl that you once were, you're now an adult. So you can tell that little girl, it's going to be okay. And thanks for what you did for me, my young girl. But now you're grown and you don't need me anymore. But what I did as a young girl is I helped you be the woman that you are today.
What are some, success is not always just a clear, straight path. What are some lessons that you've learned from failure?
Um, I have learned that I it's not all about me. I used to think it was all about me. And also, I've learned I am not perfect, and I tried to be perfect. Everything I had to cross the T's and dot the I's. I've learned that you do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I've also learned that vengeance is not mine. It's the Lord. And I've learned so much. I've learned that you do what's right, and things will work out for you. And to persevere, and to have, and something else, if you have people that are not working for you in regards to deflating who you are, diminishing who you are, you need to move on. If someone doesn't want to be with you, believe them, uh, kick and wipe the dust off your feet and move on.
Two questions here. I kind of want to swing to this one real quick, but why is telling your story so important?
Because I know within my heart it will help a whole lot of people because I don't believe I've been through just for myself. And it's always good when you hear somebody that's been through things and you're like, dang, I thought I was I thought I was going through some stuff. They're really going through it. Or people look at the outer and assume, and we all have a story. And every house you pass, beautiful $1 million homes, whatever, trust me, there is a story in there. And you wanna be you, not be somebody else. Be who you were created to be.
Absolutely. Okay. Career wise, I being a former vice president at a global 500 Fortune company, what what are some characteristics? What are some tips and suggestions for someone potentially maybe stepping into that role that you would give them in order for them to be successful? Because, as you said earlier, too much is given, much is required, right? I believe the higher you're up, the more pressure to produce and be successful. What are some tips that you would share?
Um, I would say be humble no matter what, and you want to serve. I don't care how high you get. You want to serve the individuals that are working for you because they can either make you or break you. And I also said when you're in certain positions, if let me give an example. Like I used to be a general manager at a Courtyard hotel. I was the first African American female at the hotel. And if you've not worked in those positions as a housekeeper or a dishwasher or a front desk person, you don't really understand what it is that they go through. So you want to really kind of get in there and work with your people, even if you are in charge of like Jeff Bezos with Amazon. What's wrong with having town hall meeting with your folks? What's wrong with getting their opinion about if the company's not going well? Ask them, talk to them, get them engaged in what's going on in the organization, and reiterate work-life balance. Those are some things that I think that are important as a leader, because not most, but there are leaders that they don't know where you've been. I mean, it's amazing. They can't relate because they've not been there. So get on their level so that you may understand and you'll get a whole lot more respect. And people know whether you're being authentic or truthful or not because authenticity transforms you. So that's my advice.
Can't No, you can't fake a frequency. You can't fake energy. That's one thing you definitely can't. I want to talk to you about, and this is something highlighted that I read in your bio way before we jumped on today. The very key word that is very popular right now is imposter syndrome.
Mhm.
It has been the thing that has pushed people back 5 years, and it had stopped people from acting on their dream and their life's purpose. What are some tips to overcoming imposter syndrome?
Well, first of all, imposter syndrome has been around before the word even came out. It's burnout, it's imposter syndrome. I don't think I'm good enough. Um, yeah, this person's better than I am. All of those are self-imposed barriers. It's like, oh my gosh, if I look like this, if my hair was this color, if I wore this, if I had this car, always doubting yourself. And I just think that is, if the way you look at it is can be part of your growth. And sometimes imposter syndrome is good because it humbles you. You're not all of that. I just, and that's another thing, to acknowledge it and talk to people that have experienced that. And it's so many people that have experienced imposter syndrome. It's not funny. It's just like so many people have mental illness, but you don't know, so it's not a bad thing. And if you feel like you're stuck and you just can't get out of it, I always say there's nothing wrong with seeing a therapist, but you have to see the right therapist. because all of them are not the right people for you. So I just think burnout is aligned with the imposter syndrome. You're hearing that a whole lot. And I always said, burnout was before COVID. Imposter syndrome was before COVID. This is what I believe based on my experience, people I've spoken with. COVID just gave them a reason to say it and to be okay with it. Like, okay, I'm not by myself. Okay. So if it weren't for COVID, which I always see the good in things, I think it was a blessing for COVID for a whole lot of people because things have come out that were already there before COVID. It just helped them expose themselves.
I'm super, man, I've definitely found a blessing in it because I wasn't doing exactly what we're doing today 2 years prior. So I want to talk to you about, and there's something that I read too, and I'm just reading. I'm committed to a journey of confronting habits and behaviors that kept me from living a happy and healthier life. I heard this saying the other day. What your fruits are your roots. Can you talk to us about the importance of healthy habits and how do you unplug from doing this, right? Building brand, being on podcast shows like mine. What does your downtime look like in including healthy and positive habits?
Mm-hmm. Well, it comes back to living your best life. You know, um, if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. And, for example, to live my best life, if I want to bring my whole self to you, I have to take care of my entire self. So, for example, I exercise in the mornings. I will schedule my appointments around my exercise time. Like, I'm not going to do anything at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock because that's when I exercise. Now I understand that there are people that are working. I do too, but my work is a little different. But I will admit there were times in corporate I did exercise and sometimes I didn't. But I like being quiet because I'm an introvert by nature. I like to read. I understand what things bring me solace. I like the water. I like the beach. I've never had a pet before, but I have a pet now. And it's just like, oh my gosh, I'm so in love with him. It's crazy. But all of those things that I thought I wouldn't do, or have the time for, I made the time for it. And one other thing that was not healthy for me was I worked so hard and so much that I forgot family. I would not go to certain things because I had to get this done and I had to get that done. And family is critical. Family is important. And I just realized that, wow, look how much I lost. So I consciously say, hey, number one, I work out. Number two, I like to shop. Number three, I have a pet that I love. His name is Max. And four, I'm more into my family. Family is everything. And I also have fun. I like to go out. I like to do things. And so I've made that a habit. I'm like, this is what I'm going to do. And now it's really a habit because I don't do anything. I don't schedule anything during my workout time. And sometimes I'll go to therapy. I've been to therapy a whole lot and I've stopped for a while. And then I may go back if something's coming up. And that's okay with me. And another thing that's very important to me, and it could be because I have matured, but death is inevitable. And I talk about that in my book. And a lot of people get hung up when somebody passes away. And what I mean by that is they do not know what the wishes are of their loved ones. And by not knowing and being aware of that, it creates a lot of havoc at the end of life. I don't care who it is, particularly if they're assets. So, we spend our time in preparing if we're going to get married. We spend our time, and if we get ready to start a podcast, we do the research and do all of that. So, what is your end of life wishes? What are your family and your loved ones' end of life wishes? And I say that because you're already going to grieve. But to me, based on my observations, when people are not clear on what their loved ones want when they die, that family, it's dysfunctional, and it's dysfunctional too long, and we need to put an end to that, and we need to understand what your wishes are, and you need to let somebody know, because I've known people right now who has not let go of the death of their parent because they don't believe that they did what the parent wanted when they transition. So that's something else that I have peace about.
See, that's a very good point, because that grief, that is a 40-minute conversation in itself, probably even longer. You know, you get into the mindset of victim blaming. Oh, I should have called, or I could have did this. I could have, but you didn't. And then that resentment, resentment weighs a ton, right? So you don't want to put that on you. That's not self-care. That isn't healthy. Um, and Cassandra, I'm so happy that we had the opportunity to do this today, because I got my notepad here and I have so much different notes from the things that you said, because I'm all about the word. So whenever I meet someone and they're referencing things, and you talked about, there was a time period, I could relate with that, right? And you talk about, oh, people have stories and you never know what, other, like I've been there. Like I have a question too, right?
Yeah.
And to hear your testimony today, we're blessed to bless others. So your testimonial, like I'm kind of like in awe about it, because we need to hear that, right? I need to hear that, but more important, there is someone right now that actually needs to hear that. And I don't know, I mentioned this maybe a couple of days ago, but I'll mention it again. There was a time period months ago where I was in a really dark place, and I was looking for sources of inspiration. I was looking for podcasting, right?
Mhm.
Just finding that message, right? Sometimes, the message is going to come through a messenger. But what would you say, summing down this interview, what would you say is the takeaway message you want the listeners to take away from this interview today?
What I'd like listeners to take away is to sit down and think about, what does your best life look like, and decide what that is. And that may change over time. Right now I'm living my best life. Now, next month it may be a little different, so I have to shift or pivot. But determine what that is, and if you need help getting clarity on that, you know, um, reach out, and I'm not like selling myself, but let's brainstorm that thing, because it's not easy. And I just don't want people's life to end, because there's a woman by the name of Bonnie Ware that was a hospice nurse, and she did research and wrote a book. And there were 5 things that people regretted as they were transitioning. And 2 of those things were: number one, I wish I were happier. And number two, I wish I were more true to myself. And that right there, it's no reason why we can't have that peace of mind. It's no reason why we can't be true to ourselves. And I think all that's back to, what does it take to live your best life? A lot of people, wish they were closer to family. Well, you can do that right now. You don't have to wait. So that's my thing, is define what your best life looks like, and create the strategy to help you move on to live it, and mitigate those barriers that's preventing you to do so.
Where can we, and don't be afraid, don't don't be afraid to sell on my show. You could always promote here. Where can we get a copy of your book, and where can we follow and keep up with you?
Well, I have a website, and the website is CassandraCrawley.com. And my book is also on my website. My book is on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, anywhere where books are sold. And I'm also in the process of doing an Audible version, and I'm almost done with that. And I'm looking forward to that. And I can be also contacted at Mayo at CassandraCrawley.com is my email address. And if you put Cassandra Crawley Mayo in Google search, all of that'll come up.
What I'll do is we'll include all of that in the episode description. So for the listeners that's listening right now, if you scroll down and you click the links, it will take you directly to Cassandra's website, social media, and also directly to purchasing your copy of her book. Cassandra, I want to say thank you for not only just spending your time with me today, but being vulnerable, I want to say being a human, right? Just being transparent, just pouring. You've said a lot, right? You've said a lot, but there is just so much different, like, and I told you this right before we recorded. I'm like, I have a feeling you're going to say something really inspirational tonight. And
right. Awesome.
And I was right, because this was just an absolute gem from start to finish. Cassandra, I want to thank you for spending time with me today. This was, I don't know. I sometimes I get really caught up because I don't know if it's an interview, a discussion, or a coaching session, or just all of it as a whole. But I'm just so blessed and so happy we had the opportunity to do this. Thank you again. Like always, for the listeners, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the St. Clair Speak Show podcast. Like always, what good is information if we don't apply it? Apply what you've learned today. I'll catch you in the next episode. I'm out. Peace.